Welcome to REGGAEMYLITIS, your musical catalyst. I'm your host, Cool T. Now the trend continues. After Andy Cole, we have another former footballer, former reggae boy, Joel, Joshua, Frederick, Melvin, Mcanuff. But guess what? We all know him as Jobi. Welcome to the channel, Jobi.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you.
No need to shame me up like that.
No, I'm not shaming you up, but you know, Shakespeare said, what's in a name? And you have 4, so maybe you can tell us what's in a name, really. What were your parents thinking about?
Well, I've got obviously Joel, which nobody calls me anyway, obviously Jobi. Frederick and Melvin are both my grandparents' names, so Frederick on my mum's side, Melvin Mcanuff on my dad's side, and then Joshua, I think it's just the name they like. I normally just go with Joel, Joshua, Mcanuff. So.
Okay, well it seemed like they wanted to give everybody's name in the family, you know, but that's good. But how did Jobi come about then?
Again, just something my dad came up with. I've never actually really been called Joel in my house. It's always been Jobi. That's what everyone's always sort of known me as, particularly through football. I remember when I was at Wimbledon as a young player on my first tour away with the first team, we check in at the airport. Obviously my name was Jobi from their side of things, but my passport and any documentation is Joel. And it was the first time I think I'd been in the academy from 11 to say 19, and they just looked at me like, Joel's not your name. I said, no, like Joel's my name, Jobi's not my name. So it's just one of those things that, yeah, just my dad came up with it, and it's always stuck around really.
Well, it seems your dad is very creative because he's also involved in music and writing, but we'll get to that. Jamaican connection, let's get it out there. Your dad is Jamaican?
Yeah, Jamaican. Born in Muirhouse, Buxton is the village in St Anne. Went and visited numerous times. Obviously Jamaica's been a huge part of my life through my dad and all my family. I've got loads of family here. Kingston, Mandeville, St Mary, obviously where my dad's people are from as well. So I got married here. Yeah, Jamaica's always been a huge part of my life, and obviously then going on to play for Jamaica and represent the Reggae Boyz.
Right. So you were born in London?
Born in London.
Spent most of your life here?
Yeah, like literally I've managed to stay in and around London from a football sense. It wasn't planned, but that's the way it sort of worked out really. But yeah, born and raised, still live in London to this day, yeah.
Right. And did you grow up with your dad? Did he live in England? And
yeah, so he moved over, I think I'm going to say 1958. So he's been over for a long time.
Part again, of the Windrush?
Yeah, part of the Windrush generation. So again, all his stories, you know, whether it be from his time growing up here, but also the challenges that he faced when he came over with that generation. And he's been a real inspiration to me, obviously always been around. He's actually out here with me now. That was a big part again of me being able to come out here and obviously work first and foremost, but link up with the family, and obviously my kids are here as well. So he's a very, very proud granddad having the grandchildren out in Jamaica with him.
Right, and that's good because what was it like though growing up in was it a Jamaican household, given that it's just your dad is Jamaican, because your mom is not Jamaican?
No, my mum's English, but it was a real mixture. You know, again, I was very fortunate that certainly the Jamaican aspect, whether it be the food, the music, the culture, a lot of my dad's friends, obviously, because they all came over, and you know, you have communities in certain areas in England for sure where, you know, people stick together and grow together. So a lot of my uncles, you know, who I'd call my uncles, you know, growing up, friends of my dad, you know, so that Jamaican culture was always in the house, of course, and obviously living in England with my mum's side of there, and we always had a nice blend growing up in a place called Tottenham in North London. It's one of the most multicultural places you will find in the UK, and that's actually factual in terms of the makeup of the people. So it was always a very vibrant place to live, different cultures, different communities, but everyone seems to be able to get on, and that's something that for me has been a real, you know, huge bonus in my life, being able to see things from different sides.
And the Jamaican culture through your father would have been evident in the household. You said
absolutely, yeah, man. The music, you know, reggae, obviously, but the fact that he wrote his own music as well was always something that was playing in the house. Again, listen, whether it's food, you know, which for him and certainly for us, you know, has been a huge part of our life, definitely. And making sure that we're going out and, you know, getting the foods that we need from various markets. Once again, you know, in London you'll have certain areas that love the markets where you can go and get, you know, your yam, your green banana, you know, all your fresh food and homegrown food, you know what I mean? So that's also something that was, you know, a big part of us growing up.
And then you talk about him writing music, but you have an uncle who is actively involved in the music as a reggae singer,
Yes.
Winston Mcanuff.
Yeah, Winston Mcanuff. So my dad actually wrote and has written a lot of songs for him. He's obviously had some album releases. Electric Dread was one of his bigger ones, I suppose.
Yeah, right.
And he's travelled the world really. He's recently been doing some work over in France where he's got quite a big following. Also have another uncle, Tony Mcanuff, who actually moved to Japan years and years ago, who was also in the music business, who we visited over in Japan. So we're worldwide. Jamaicans are Mcanuffs are all over the place, as are Jamaicans across the world. But yeah, in terms of that music and the sound, I suppose, I mean, he'd have, you know, his own instruments in the house. He's always a guitarist, really. So he'd always be on, you know, strumming the guitar, whether it's keyboard. We would there be sort of with our shakers, you know, just making little songs and stuff growing up. And yeah, man, it was always, you know, a good vibe and good sounds in the house.
So you're a reggae boy in the truest sense, not just because you represent Jamaica and took on the brand as a reggae boy. I'll get into that shortly.
Yeah.
But your love, do you have a love for the music emanating from your dad and your uncles?
Yeah, for sure, man. As I say, for me, you know, when you look at music and talking about music, and you talk about Jamaica, you can't talk about one without the other.
Right.
You know, and just being here for this time, everywhere you go, whether it's on the street, you know, in hotels, like you can always hear tunes playing out, and that's something that, again, for me, is something that I always sort of had with me, and you know, love of music really stems from my dad in the house.
And England, the UK is a strong base for Jamaican music because the likes of Dennis Brown went there, did song with Oswald, The Promised Land, those kind of songs and stuff like that. Burning Spear and other people who went there. So that connection is there, mostly in Brixton as well, that I know. You said you're in the Tottenham area. So outside of football, would you have gone into music if you wouldn't have been a footballer?
Oh, that's a tough one. I've got to say, football's always been my one sort of real true passion, and sports in general, I would say. If I wasn't a footballer, I probably would have pursued another sport, maybe cricket. I played athletics, I did a lot of running, track in school. So certainly they would probably be my next port of call. I was never a great musician, I've got to say, despite my dad's ability and him always having a guitar in the house. I think I'm more of a listener than a player, for sure.
Okay, well, that's good. Now let's go into the football. You said you do a lot of sports, cricket, track and field, but you started out at Wimbledon in football. How was that experience?
Yeah, great, man. It was a lot different to obviously how it is now in academy setups, where it starts a lot younger, but I probably went over when I was sort of 11 or 12 into sort of the pre-academy, I suppose, where you're still at school, and then sort of work your way through the age groups there. But yeah, great experience, made some great friends, and really learned, I suppose, the trade. You know, then you get to sort of 16 and you either leave school and go and be a full-time apprentice, which is what I did eventually. And again, that's then a process of, you've got a couple of years before you get given what's called a professional contract. And again, it's just doing, you know, the early rounds, I suppose, learning different parts about being a professional, you know, and certainly that for me has been a big part of my involvement. We had some brilliant older pros during that time. Again, people that I'm sure many Jamaican fans will be familiar with, the likes of Robbie L, Marcus Gale, who were two players in the first team at that time. And actually having seen black leaders, and they weren't just black players who happened to be at Wimbledon, these were captains, you know, vice captains, senior members of the squad. And
Robbie Earl went to the World Cup in '98 with the Reggae Boyz, had a good performance. He scored the first goal for the Reggae Boyz.
Exactly,
against Croatia.
Yes, that's right. So that would have been probably, what would have been about 17, 18. So that time there was, you know, a real amazing time for me, not just to be, you know, following Jamaica, which obviously I would always do, but the fact I had a personal connection to those guys who were then going out to represent Jamaica as well, and it really, I suppose, opened my eyes up to the possibility of, you know, going on and representing Jamaica. And yeah, it certainly stoked a few fires for me back in those formative years, but then the next thing really was to get in the first team at Wimbledon, which I did, and again, having those guys to really help and guide me through was, you know, a huge help, really. And we were very fortunate to have a good bunch of senior pros who really helped us through, and then managed to make my debut in the first team, and you know, enjoyed a couple of years there at Wimbledon.
And that was early 2000, around 2002, thereabout.
Yes.
And incidentally, that would have been the time you got to call up for the Reggae Boyz, the Unity Cup against Nigeria, and it's in your hometown,
Loftus Road. Loftus Road, QPR. Right. Yeah, so it was at the end of my first full season as a professional. I think I was, it would have been 20 maybe, 19, 20, about 20. So yeah, got called up to go and join up with the squad, which I was obviously incredibly excited about, and went and met up with the group. It was an interesting experience, I'll tell you that. It was just off the back of a really bad performance prior to leaving here. I can't remember who they would have played against, but I know they were flying in from the States, possibly America they would have played. So they had just arrived in, so it's myself and another player, Richard Langley, who went on to play more, certainly in those early stages than I did. And yeah, there was just a real, I'd say, bad vibe in the camp at that time. You know, it seemed to be a real big clash between some of the overseas players and the local based players that actually resulted in, you know, a physical altercation. I was sort of like, this is my first time in here. Like,
as a youngster,
right. But also, you know, it's a huge commitment, you know, given the geography in terms of the effort it takes to come on when you're based in the UK, to fly out, the time difference, the time away, you know, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it was certainly an interesting experience, my first cap, I suppose. But I remember the actual event, and this is the thing that always stuck with me, the atmosphere, you know, obviously from the Jamaican fans, but against Nigeria as well, in London, where you've got so many African-based and Caribbean and Jamaican. Right. So it was like a carnival, you know. It just gave me a real, as I say, like insight in what it would be like, you know, to represent. And that was in England. So I was like, boy, imagine that was in Jamaica. Right. So yeah, it was great, man. That was, yeah, again, my first appearance, I suppose. It was a long one. You came on
as a substitute.
That's right, yeah. And again, when you're there, you just want to be involved. You want to get on. Obviously, listen, it's difficult. You don't know a lot of the players in terms of trying to make an impact. You know, you want to do as well as you can. But it was all about the experience for me, and you know, one that certainly stayed with me, and it obviously took me a long time to come back and play.
That's what I wanted to get to, because it took you until 2013.
Yes.
That's more than 10 years.
Yeah,
to get back for the Reggae Boyz. What do you think contributed to that? I know that you said there was the confrontation among the players where the local base weren't so happy.
Yeah.
Do you think that conflict would have contributed to you not getting the call up?
I don't know if I would say that was the direct thing. From a personal point of view, you know, I had to make a decision at that point. Is that something I'm going to commit to? You know, as a 19, 20-year-old, I'm still trying to make my name in the game, certainly at home. You know, I was only off the back of one season, and I wanted to establish myself, you know, in my own career at home, in terms of, you know, making sure I got to a point where I could say, look, I'm going away and I'm playing for Jamaica, and no manager can sort of look at it a certain way, or what you're going away for, or all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, I sort of wanted to know that, I suppose, things were being done behind the scenes to give us the best chance of doing well.
Right.
And certainly from what I saw at that point in time, there was going to be some challenges in that. I'd always keep a keen and a close ear on what was going on through friends of mine. Obviously, I played with a lot of guys that came across and played in the time I hadn't been representing Jamaica for, from my first cap to when I came back against Mexico. If I'm being honest, I left it way too late. I wish I'd come back a lot sooner.
So just to be clear, the decision was your decision?
Yeah,
were you called up in between, or contacted by the JFF?
Very, I'd say, fleeting conversations. I never really had any direct conversations with anyone from JFF about coming back until a lot later on. And then I spoke to Captain and you know, Captain Burrell, and he really sort of, you know, made a real big pitch to sort of get me back involved. But as I say, it was, I'd say, a decision that was taken on both sides. For me, as I say, ideally I would have liked to have come back into the fold a lot sooner than I did.
Right.
I missed a lot of football, and you know, obviously for me, once I came back, it was then a matter of trying to, I suppose, make up for lost time and just enjoy the experience as much as I did. And I had a brilliant time from when I came back to when I finished playing.
Right, but you came back, as I said, with a core group of players that you would have been familiar with. You played in the English Premier League with Reading. Also, there was Gareth McCleary. I think you have a good friendship off the field with Gareth, and you still keep in contact with him, no?
Yeah, I'm close with G. Again, we came back. He was actually my roommate that first game back against Mexico at the Azteca, which was again an incredible experience, and even leading into the game, you know, I wouldn't say dissimilar, but we had again a few guys who had been playing in the UK come across, and there's probably still a little bit of that friction at times, and it's understandable. I think our job really was to come and really contribute, and I don't mean that just on the field, I mean, you know, in and around the changing room, you know, off the field, whether we're travelling, hotel rooms, just to try and bring everybody together and create a real team spirit and togetherness. And over the time that we were in camp, we certainly were able to do that. I feel that everybody who was involved during that time would say that would be one of the core strengths of ours. You know, no matter who was on the pitch, whether you're born in England, whether you're playing in England, playing in the States, playing in Europe, you know, everybody felt they were an equal part of that team. And I think that was, for us, the biggest thing, because learning from maybe previous camps and groups, that wasn't always the case. But yeah, coming back to that first game, it's still a game I look back on now. We should have won. I had a big opportunity.
I remember you were getting a lot of bashing for that.
Yes, I know.
I'm going to be honest with you.
No, listen,
because that was a historic moment if you would have won.
Absolutely. And they're the moments that you look back on your career when you finish, and even when you're playing, and wish you could go back and maybe change that one thing. But like I say, it's one of those things that you learn in the game. You know, you can't do anything about something that's happened in the past. It's all about what you do next. And you know, from that point on, it was really just about trying to come, show up as much as I could, you know, on the pitch, as I say, be a leader off of the pitch, and try and create something special, which, you know, in terms of Gold Cup, we got very close to doing. There's always going to be a huge disappointment in terms of the World Cup campaigns I was involved in too. You know, that first one, you know, in terms of getting into the hex and not quite getting there, and then the second time round, which was a combination, I think, of, you know, we had a real tough draw that year off the back of the Gold Cup. You know, we got put in a crazy group.
And as I'm speaking as a fan now, you see, when we see those results, especially in the Gold Cup going to the final, almost beating Mexico in the Azteca, it's almost as if we get the idea and say, yeah man, then when World Cup campaigns start, we must can qualify for World Cup, you know, and it never materialized. But what do you think was the biggest hindrance?
Again, listen, I don't know how long we've got, but this is a long time conversation. It's not just one thing. What I will say, and this is going back to even before '98, is we, and I say we as a country, whether that's local based players with Jamaican descent like myself, you know, we have always got the players, and we should be qualifying for World Cups.
Every World Cup.
That to me is unquestionable. Because I look around at Canada now, for example, and we played against Canada in the Gold Cup in 2015, and see where they are now. You know, since we last qualified, Trinidad and Tobago, you know, Panama's that qualify, Honduras,
Costa Rica, ever present.
Listen, we've got better players worldwide to call on. So then you have to look at what's next. You know, is our infrastructure right? Is it geared up to give the players the platform to go and achieve and be successful? I would say it needs to be better, for sure. So listen, there are things that definitely, as I'll say federation, we should and could be doing a lot better, which I think will help overall. And then it's also about recruitment. It's getting the right types of players, creating a team environment that is going to go out and be successful. And also engaging with everybody in Jamaica. And listen, I understand completely that someone might hear me speak and might not think I am deeply connected.
Authority to do that, right?
And it's about us then, again, interacting, taking the time out, you know, to get our points across, let people understand that, yes, I was born in England, but my dad is Jamaican through and through. I'm, you know, Jamaican through and through in terms of my history and my culture and everything about my life growing up. Yes, I wasn't born here, and I want to come and I want to do well, and I want to help as much as I can. I want to see Jamaica get to a World Cup. And again, it's then about all the other knock-on effects that can have. You know, and again, when I look at '98, what's the legacy from '98? You know, do we have a training facility here? You know, did the finance, and I'm talking, you know, big finance here, does that filter down when I look at, again, other countries in the region that maybe have used those funds better to give the next generations coming a better opportunity than the ones before them have had? And that's really what we should be looking at. when we've got the talent that we've got, listen, the next World Cup we have to qualify. It's as simple as that.
All right. Ironically, you talk about '98 and the legacy.
Yeah.
But the legacy of '98 ended after '98. It started maybe 2-3 years before '98 when René Sumois came and took charge from Brazil.
Yeah.
And he instilled a culture within the Jamaican football spectrum.
Yeah.
And he had training camps. And later on he brought in a lot of English players because he wanted a better pool of players heading into the World Cup. But there was a time you worked closely now with Warren Barrett.
Yes.
He was once the face of the Reggae Boyz as a local player.
Yeah.
Shorty Malcolm, Theodore Whitmore, who coached you as well.
Yeah.
And at one point we were unbeaten at the National Stadium for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And that structure was there, but disassembled after the World Cup.
Yeah.
And ever since we have not gotten the formula again. And maybe it's politics.
Yeah.
It's politics within the football itself, you know. But you are involved in administration in England. You're a non-executive, independent non-executive member of the English FA.
Yeah.
Just tell me, what does that entail?
Well, basically, as you say, it's a board role. So I'm one of the now 12 members of the board of the FA. We had a new chair come in fairly recently, a lady called Debbie Hewitt, and she wanted to, I suppose, readdress the makeup of the board, make it a little bit more realistic in terms of where the FA sits in terms of its football association, but yet we'd never had an ex-footballer on the board.
Right.
Again, board level positions are always sort of looked at as, I suppose, older people that have been on different boards, and you know, whereas I think football's quite a unique business where there's a commercial side to things and a marketing side to things, but ultimately it's the football that drives everything that the FA or the JFF does.
Right. It makes the money for
the
board.
There you go.
Right.
So she wanted a bit more of someone who's had a bit of a, not just a background, but a recent background in the game. And again, I've come onto it with no board experience, but what she's certainly helping me with and acting as a bit of a mentor in that side of things, and it's almost like a trade-off, what I can gain from you in terms of that football expertise and insight and experience that you've had versus what I can get off of her in terms of that board level conversation. We'll vote on obviously issues, we'll discuss matters, and listen, the FA is a huge organisation, you know, it covers so many different areas of the game in the UK, from professional football, you know, grassroots, semi-professional, women's game, disability, just so many different areas that it's been a real good learning experience for me, certainly at administration and board level, and it's always something I've been interested in. Obviously I coached for a bit, I managed for a little bit, so now for me to be able to get this role and see things from the other side and be on sort of the behind the scenes, I suppose, and everything that goes into running football, particularly in England, has been a real good experience so far.
All right, and I asked that question specifically because I wanted to know, with that experience at board level and seeing the struggles that we have administrative wise in Jamaica, would you consider running for JFF president or having some control of Jamaican football?
Listen, I've always said, and from the time either I've played or since I've been retired, I always want to help, and I always want to be, at some point, if it's possible, a part of a group of people, certainly, that would help deliver World Cup football for sure, and again, an improvement to the infrastructure of football in this country, because that's the only way we're going to really sustain success and be able to marry up the talent that we've got, both naturally here in Jamaica and again the players that we can call on around the world, and sort of try and marry that up. And certainly for me, it's something I would love to be a part of, you know, in the future at some point, if that possibility was ever to arise, you know. But again, you know, there's so many different ways that people can help, you know, whether that is a direct place on the JFF board, whether that's helping with recruitment overseas, whether that's helping with coaching, all these things that I've certainly offered, you know, since my retirement, and be more than willing to come and give up my time to help with that, as there are so many different people all around the place. You know, it's about, for me, creating that network of people that are passionate and dedicated to Jamaican football to help it improve. And we've got so much, honestly, around the world. It is crazy. you know, that we're not using it, in my opinion, to its full potential. And that doesn't necessarily mean somebody has to come and sit on the board. It just means better communication and being a little bit more open, I think, with our dialogue between all the different sectors, and just helping to lift up the football to the levels that we know it should be getting to.
What is undeniable is that your love for football is real. You know, I've watched you on Sky Sports given in your punditry role, and I've worked with you here now as a pundit here, and it's extremely amazing, you know, to see that your natural knowledge and love for the game. So I think that in the Jamaican space you'd have a role to play. And you talk about coaching. You at Leighton Orient, you were the player manager for a while.
Yeah.
How was that experience, and would you consider, based on that experience, going back in management?
Yeah, definitely. Overall, I'd say it was an amazing experience to be able to get that opportunity to manage, because I think there's a lot of people, and I probably did it before I even managed, even through my experience of playing and coaching, and looked at managers or management and thought, oh, you know what, I could do that, you know, when it comes to this decision or that decision. You know, what I will tell you from my own experience, it is it's a real tough job. Obviously I was playing as well, which made it even more difficult. I think the biggest challenge probably is the lack of ability to sort of switch off. It's very consuming. So that as a manager, the buck stops with you. You know, as a coach, you might get asked to go and put on a session. Right, I'm just putting on a session for 10 players or 15 players or 20 players, or we might want to do a phase of play based on possession. How do we want to play with the ball? How do we want to play without the ball? Whereas I can put that on, done the session, now it's up to the manager to pick the team, deal with the players who are not happy, deal with the board, which if you're working at a club level, you've got to deal with, you know, board members, deal with the fans, you know, all the different areas and aspects of being a manager. So for me, it was great to have that insight. I now know exactly what it would entail if it's something I wanted to go and do again at this moment in time. And it came when I was towards the end of my career, obviously. And listen, I would have taken the opportunity if Leighton Orient gave me the job. They wanted to go a different direction, which was fine. And so for me at that point, it felt like a natural break, really, to step away from the day-to-day aspect of football. Because as I said, I've been in it since 16. I played till I was 39. You know, so it's a long stint where your whole life is dictated to by a fixture
on one floor.
Right. And also, at times, your whole mood is dependent on what happens on a Saturday or a Tuesday. You know, and certainly when I was younger, and until I had my kids, really, you know, I'd lose a game and I'd be like, don't speak to me for 2 days, and then you sort of start getting a bit older and realising that's not the be all and end all. It still hurts, don't get me wrong, but it's very consuming. And I had obviously I've got 2 boys, 9 and 7, love being around them. So in terms of being able to do what I'm doing at the moment, in terms of the analysis and the punditry, at this moment in time, it gives me a nice balance where I'm still involved in, as you say, the game that I love, I'm passionate about. You know, football's always been my thing, and something I hope I'm involved in for the rest of my life in some capacity. But not the day-to-day, day in, day out, where it is very intense at this moment with the kids being the ages they are, because it does take you away from your kids when you're managing. So at this moment in time, I'm pretty happy. There's loads I miss about being in a changing room, you know, that buzz of winning a game, you know, and sometimes losing a game, because that's what gives you your fire and your motivation to get up and go again on a Monday morning when something's not gone right on a match day, and being able to look through it and really, what did we not do well, or what could I have done better, whether it's playing, managing, coaching. And I definitely wouldn't say I wouldn't get back involved again. But for now, I've got a good balance to things, and I'm pretty happy.
Oh, that's good. All right, so let's go to 2015 Copa America.
Yeah.
In a group with Argentina, lining up against the great LIONEL Messi.
Yeah.
The shirt, that's the jersey, the Messi jersey.
Yeah.
You know, everyone would have been in line for that jersey.
Yeah.
But you got it. Tell me about that story.
Right, so this is an interesting one. So obviously at the time I was rooming with Rudy Austin, who was the captain at the time. I suppose I was vice-ish, but we were sort of the 2 senior members of the group. And again, even just getting drawn against Argentina was brilliant. You know, you always want to get against one of the big guns. You know, you're going to the Copa America, you know, we had a good idea that you know, if we were playing well, we'd have a chance of playing the game. So we played the first couple of games, Paraguay, Uruguay, and obviously we had a lot of lads who wanted all the shirts, you know, so you'd have like after a game, final whistle goes, look around, boom, man just off the bench, like getting a shirt, next shoulder, boom, another man coming past you, another shirt's gone. And again, myself and Rudy, we're not sort of ones to sort of be, again, one of our big strengths as a group was everybody was equal, whoever the captain or vice, or, you know, no one was throwing their weight around and saying they're more important than the others. The one time we probably did that was with this Messi shirt. So we're coming up obviously against Argentina. So me and Rudy in a room the night before, and we're like, listen, boy, there's one shirt we have to carry home. It's Messi's, right? So we need to. So we kind of agreed, like once we get out there, we're gonna put our foot down. If we need to put our foot down, there's only one place that shirt's going.
See, that's right? Politics at play.
Listen, trust me, there's always a time and a place. There's always a time and a place. Always. Yeah. So anyway, the game starts. So I'm literally lining up the halfway lines here. So me and Messi crossed the thing. So I just looked at him and I said, oh, you know, shirt after. So he just gave me the thumbs up. Didn't speak great English. So I'm like, boy, that's it. I'm good. Like, I've got the Messi shirt. Like, I can concentrate on the game now. So played the first half. And obviously internationally, normally you get 2 shirts. Right. So if there's a player that you want, you go and swap at half time. Then you might swap again
at full time.
Or if you miss half time, then you can get any after. So half time whistle goes. So I go to Messi. Next, I look over my shoulder. It's not one of the youths then. It's Rudy. Yeah. Boom! Straight past me this time. So I'm like, hang on a minute. Where's he come from? So obviously it's Rudy. Yeah. We'd had the conversation. He'd obviously been in with Messi. So before the match, 2 captains go in together. Right. Do the toying course. Who's going to kick at what end?
Exchange emblems and
right.
stuff. Right.
So he's already done the deed. So Messi takes off and Rudy's got the shirt. So I'm looking at Rudy.
Really?
Then I'm looking at Messi. So I said, second half. He says, yeah, no problem. So I said, right, cool. So Rudy goes in, tucks the shirt away. Cool, he's happy, he's got the Messi shirt. So second half, play the game. Obviously fully focused on the match, yeah. Obviously Argentina, big game. But the last 10 minutes or so, I'm like looking at the clock, is Messi still on the pitch? Like, where is he on the pitch? I'm like, not even really playing in the position, but I'm around him.
Man marking.
Yeah, pretty much man marking. It's the best man marking job I've done, to be fair. So the time's ticking, I'm like, where is he? Final whistle goes. So this time, it's me. Boom! I'm running over to him, go up to him. I said, oh, shirt. So he said, yeah, but like pointed to sort of the changing room. So I'm like, all right, it's Messi. He's saying wait, so I'm gonna wait. And I look round again. Everybody just peeling off tops. I think Higuain played his tops off. Mascherano his tops off. Something like. So I just tapped him. I said, oh, everyone changing now. And he just said, yeah, no problem. So he goes to turn. Still, I'm like, I look back on it now and I'm like, Messi's taking his shirt off. Right. So I'm standing there in my shirt and I said, oh, don't worry, like, no. He said, no, I take your one. So we swapped over.
Both number 10s.
Both number 10s, which I thought was a nice moment. And so we had the kit manager at the time, absolute legend, Stone, who still works for the JFF today. Hardest working man ever at the JFF, right? So if he's watching this or anyone at the JFF, give the man a raise, yeah? He works so hard. Yeah, man. So anyway, he was there. So I've got a really nice picture of me, Messi and Stone, which is a nice part of it for me. Someone who, again, managed the kit so well for so long. So yeah, man, the shirt's tucked up nicely at home. So that's definitely for me one of my highlights of my career, for real.
And playing so closely, well, before I go to that, most people know, the average fan would say, but you're a baller, why you being such a fanboy? But it's
Messi.
It's Messi.
Listen, I'm with you, right? And all the time I played, like, obviously in the Premier League or like big FA Cup games against, particularly if I'm captain or if I've not won the game, just my own pride, I would not go and swap a shirt with a man. Yeah, and it's probably one thing I look back on now and I go, I wish I'd got Rooney's shirt. Or again, I'm a big Liverpool fan, so Steven Gerrard for me, growing up and watching football, you know, when he's put Liverpool and Premier League, he's top. So he's one that I definitely wanted, and I've got his at home. But generally, if it was other teams, Chelsea players, Man City players, I would be like, unless it's my brethren, someone that I've played against, and I know the respect is mutual. What I don't want to do is go and swap with a man and he's sort of thinking, I don't even know who this guy is or whatever. I think the fact that we were both 10s for Messi was, whoever you play for, when you carry the number 10, it's got a nice bit of weight to it, especially when you're playing international.
Historically, number 10
man, it's a big number, like, especially internationally. So I think for me, it's Messi, listen, and we've seen what he's done today. This is how many years on, and he's still, for me, the greatest player I've ever seen play. Obviously, the Maradona era was just as I was sort of getting into the game and my love of the game. But from my own eyes, the amount of times I've seen him do what he has done today, for me to say I've got his shirt that I played against, it was his 100th game for Argentina that night as well, so a special one for him. Is definitely one that, fanboy or not, that's a shirt that I'll treasure forever, man.
And deservingly so. But you scored for Reading against Manchester United.
Yes.
Was it at Old Trafford?
At Old Trafford, yeah. So as a Liverpool fan, that was a nice one.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I'm a Man U fan, so it
okay,
breaks my heart,
cool.
But when I saw it, I was celebrating a bit because it's Jobi and he's a reggae boy.
Yeah, man. Like, again, that was they're the moments and the things that you look back on after, and my whole career I'm obviously proud of, but yeah, you have the few standout moments along the way that really supposed to be that little bit extra when you finish.
All right, so what's next? Because I spoke with Andy Cole, another legend, and Andy is such a humble soul. I really appreciate him. I was mentioning to him that growing up as a Man U fan, I've been watching him, reading, even when I couldn't watch the games, reading, and just to be here with him.
Yeah.
And it's the same with you as well, going to the National Stadium, watching you, and getting closer to know the persons you are. Because sometimes when people see you on TV, they put you on this level, which you're a superstar, but at the end of the day, when they get to know you, it's so humbling. And Andy Cole went in the record studio after the 1999 treble season for Manchester United. Did a song outstanding. That rap song, right? So I was asking him about it, and he said that we won, so I felt like we had everything at my disposal. So So do you plan to go into a bit of music now? I know you said that you haven't taken the singing.
Nah, boy, listen, you don't want to hear my singing voice or my rapping voice. But again, that's the difference with Coley. Like, same thing with you. For me, Coley is an absolute legend. Like, again, watching a black man be the very, very best there was at that time, and seeing the impact that he made on certainly myself, all of my friends growing up, absolutely huge. I knew him for a few different people before we come and did some work here. But like you say, the most humble guy for a man who's achieved what he has in his career. And listen, he's getting in the studio after winning the treble, man. So listen, he can do what he wants. You know what I mean? Man United, Champions League, him and Yorkie. Again, for us watching that, and I was playing at the time, but that was the pinnacle. The very, very best of the best. So Coley can get in the studio and do what he's doing. For me, I'll just give it a pass for now.
But in terms of artists, reggae artists, what are some of your favorite artists?
Boy, God, how far are we going back, man? If you want to, again, a different sort of, I suppose, say genres really. But at the moment, I suppose, Popcorn, Alkaline, man. If you want a bit more chill, Jamil, I love the stuff that he does. Again, a lot more conscious, and I like that. Again, there's a lot of stuff going on with dancehall music that sometimes is a bit hard to kind of take on board, sort of thing. So, and then obviously if you're talking like old school, Beres and the old sort of generals and reggae, proper reggae artists really. So yeah, man, we get again a nice mixture at home. I suppose it just depends what kind of mood you're in, and what kind of dance you're going to really.
For Andy, Cartel is one of his favorite.
Oh, really?
artists. And I was like, really? Gaza, because it's so calm, but I can understand music is music.
100%, man, and that's one thing with reggae in particular. Man, and when it hits you,
you feel no pain.
Right, there you go,
great
man.
legend Bob Marley.
Exactly. So again, for me, growing up, Bob Marley was constantly on in my house. I actually went and watched a brilliant musical. They got one over in London at the moment. Based on him, his life, and man, like again, depending on what kind of mood you're in, you just flip on either whatever you want on and gets you going, man.
And then you see it now, a lot of people would think that because you were born in England, you are isolated from the culture. So it might come as a surprise. Popcorn, the man there listen popcorn. Yeah, but it's good. I mean, once a Jamaican, always a Jamaican.
Yeah, but I think also it's like, I think now with music, and again this was like, so back in the day, if I'd ever come, and even not too far along, a lot of my brethren who are like proper into dancehall, and like if I'm over here for a game or whatever, they're like always like, right, bring back the latest thing, like who's popping over there. And but now Poppy releases something now here, it's the same thing we're getting in England.
Right.
You know, we've got
instant,
instant, we've got YouTube.
It's not like
on the social media channels. The minute he puts that out, that's going out globally.
Right.
So there isn't that lag anymore. And again, when you look at sort of how reggae music impacts the whole world and has done for so long, and it's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it is getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And do your sons, they're 9 and 7, are they exposed to the culture as much as you were growing up?
Yeah, as I say, my dad's been a huge part of their life. So again, that's why it was really important. I actually, got married here. My kids, we came, I think before COVID, obviously everything shut down for a few years. So it's the first time they've been for a while, but they've been twice already. And it's really important for me, you know, to make sure they understand their roots and where they come from. And also everything my dad went through, you know, and what Jamaica represents to me, you know, as a country, and the role it's played in my life, because that's my heritage, so it's their heritage, and they love it, man. Like as soon as they come over, and again, being over with Grandad, for them is such a special time for us now, and it's a time that they'll always remember and always cherish, and it's about building, you know, that understanding in them about what Jamaica's all about. And I think that's important for them now, where they're seeing different parts of the island, whether it be Kingston. You know, we've been out into the country a little bit. I'm going to go and see some more of my family, just to give them a real good overview about what it is to be Jamaican.
And are they taking an interest in football at the moment?
Yeah, so my youngest in particular is certainly looking like he wants to go down that road. My eldest has never been that into it. He's more sort of cars and trucks and aeroplanes, but because my youngest is like, he's a fanatic. I mean, he will come up here and tell you all the players in the World Cup, Premier League players, Champions League players. He loves it, but now because my older one's like almost got no choice, he's kind of into it. Right. But I think I see him more as a sort of commentator. So he loves, my little boy will be playing FIFA and he'll be there doing, they turn the sound down, he'll be doing the commentary. So it might be a little bit of both in there. Listen, he loves it, man. So again, I think we could have one playing and one commentating on the one playing.
But imagine you as a father seeing that, one of your sons playing and the other is a commentator. That reminds me of Robbie Savage.
Yeah.
When his son came on from Manchester, went on from Manchester United in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And that moment was just breathtaking.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, that's one of the, I suppose, the things that you sort of hope for. I've never been, especially with my oldest one, he wasn't that into it. I'm never going to be one of these dads, because I played, he must play football. You have to be able to love this game, because everyone sees the glitz and the glamour, but there's some real knocks, there's some tough times, there's disappointments you have to be able to deal with, and you can only really deal with that if you love the game and understand there'll be a better day to come sometimes, and get over those disappointing times. But yeah, man, if it's something that he wants to get into, then absolutely I will be here to help guide him. And likewise, if he gets to a point, like my oldest one, if he gets to a point and says, I'm not really that interested, then you go and find something that you're passionate about, whatever they do. And I've been lucky, you know, to do something that I genuinely love and have a passion for, whether that's playing, as I say, coaching, even doing this now. I'm involved in the game that I love, so that's what I want for them, just to find something that they're happy doing.
And if he wants to venture into the football, would you push for him to represent Jamaica or England? And being a bit...
Yeah, listen, again, I think that decision will be his when it comes to the point of he has to make it. Listen, if he makes it as a professional footballer for a start, the chances are very, very slim, and that's one thing, you know, without being too negative, I've got to make sure he has an open mind. That's one thing my father and my mother always said to me: get in your books. You know, you ain't going to play football unless your work's done, your school work's done, you know, because there is a big chance it doesn't happen. And if it does, great, you've got that backup, because there's still pitfalls that can happen even if you do make it. But if it doesn't, then you're not going into a situation where you're behind everybody. So listen, if that's something, again, that materialises, then we'll have conversations about it, I'm sure. But like I was able to make my own decisions, you know, my sons will definitely be able to make theirs. I'll obviously help them and guide them, and you know, once that decision comes, if it ever does, then listen, if my son's got to choose who to play for, then it's going to be a good thing because he's done okay up to that point, man. You know what I mean?
To reach that level, to be considered.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, you know, to be considered to even represent the Reggae Boyz, that's an achievement itself.
Oh, absolutely, man. Listen, you're playing international football, I don't care who it's for, you know, and this is the difference. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Jason Roberts, who now works for CONCACAF, representing Grenada.
And a few Premier League teams.
Yeah, man, and we were talking about our experiences playing for our countries, and they're the best experiences we've had on the football pitch, you know, in terms of you understand, again, when you've got that association with this country that you are representing and it is a big part of your life. And maybe other people don't quite get that because, again, they might hear the accent or think that you're not born here. But this is my country, same way England's my country. And for me to be able to represent the place of my dad's birth and see the pride and the joy on his face and all my other family's face when I play here in Jamaica, or were you going to play in a Copa America or the Gold Cup and you're representing a whole country, there's something about that, no matter the size of the country, that trumps any club football.
We're wrapping up, but just on that point, because being in the national stadium, especially bleachers, that's where you hear all the stories.
Yeah, man.
You hear all the pundits, you hear all the coaches, you hear everybody.
Yeah.
And one of the criticisms of the English-based, and not just English-based, but US-based players as well, is that, oh, they're not aligned to the culture. You clearly dismissed that. But the next one is about the conditions. So the heat and the turf itself. Because the national stadiums feel, and the one in Montego Bay, they aren't the best you would have played on, I guess. But you have
the
played on
Bay one was alright, man.
Yeah.
We won the Caribbean Cup
in 2014.
But again, that comes back to my original point about infrastructure and governance and facilities. Now, our pitch, the National Stadium, should be so much better than it is. There's no reason why here in Jamaica we can't have a nice pitch. And I'm not just saying that just to help the local, the guys who play in England or the USA, or as if to say we can't come over and play in it. But we have to create an identity and a philosophy that helps us win games, particularly at home. And that's the big thing I think we have lost over the years for whatever reason. And when you go to Costa Rica, you go to Panama, you go to Haiti, like everything is in those countries' favours when you go to their country. Right. Even after referees, with sometimes all the Hispanic referees and they don't speak English, and you know there's a real sense of you're not just facing that 11 players, you're facing
the fans and the
20,000, the atmosphere, the way they make you feel when you walk in their country, hotel. You know, that all goes into, if you're talking about qualifying for a World Cup and beating these teams here, there's so much that goes into winning
and at one point that used to work for Jamaica, because captain used to organize, get the matches to be played at even 1 o'clock.
See, we heard all about that. Yeah, man.
And then the national stadium itself was a fortress, 30,000 people. And the aggressive nature. Boo when a Mexican touched the ball, an American, whoever it was.
But why should that change depending on who's out there playing for Jamaica?
Because, it's the identity.
Yeah, but
because it's almost like when you see a Theodore Whitmore, not Fitzgerald Simpson because he was English at the time, but a Linval Dixon, a Warren Barrett, a Walter Boyd, Ian Goodison. It's almost these people are from the ghetto. These people are from the country, so there's more of a connection between.
But they must say that.
Right, but that's the thing. We, as the fans who are not the purest, we understand that, right? And I support every reggae boy. Once you make an appearance at Jamaica, I consider you a reggae boy. But it's almost as if the fans, they push themselves from the players more than, and they don't realize by pushing themselves from the players and then blame the players when it's actually their fault because you as a player want to represent the country wholeheartedly. Right.
But I think that's where, again, I would come back to you, say, why have we not had the level of success? And it's not a straightforward answer, and it isn't just one thing, but a lack of connection, absolutely, between the fans and the team, whoever's in that team. And what I would love to see is no matter who is representing Jamaica, no matter where they're born, and I'm not saying it should be a team full of men that are born in England, right? But I'm also not saying it has to just be a team of men that are born in Jamaica, because if you want to get to the level, you look at all teams around the world now, if they've got a player who, you look at Germany, for example, you know, they're going to find players that aren't necessarily born in Germany. That's a big nation, You know, you look at Canada, same thing with Canada. You know, Canada have surpassed us now. You know, it's about kind of and again, when I say there's a short-term goal, a medium-term, and a long-term, I say goal and plan is what we should have, and you have to understand what that plan takes in the short term to get to the long term. And the long-term plan should be that we can develop football well enough in this country, and that means improving youth football, improving schoolboy football, Premier League here, to be able to develop players that are homegrown to fill up a national team. That is going to be good enough to go and compete with
and be consistent.
At the moment, you have to ask yourself, is that the case where we can do that with just purely players here when we've got such good players around the world? Having said that, what you then must have is players that are coming into the program who are committed, who are dedicated, who do know about their connection to the country and are here for the right reasons to help not just the team that's playing today, but to help bring football forward. I think if you can get that mix and get people to understand and buy into that, then that's when the connection strengthens. And I think until, again, we get that, then there's always going to be the questions of, is a Jobi Mcanuff as committed as a Kamar Lawrence? Right? And then you go and ask Kamar Lawrence that, or a Jermaine Taylor, or Ryan Thompson, was I as committed as them, man, when we were playing for Jamaica? I'll let them tell their side of the story, because they will see from my actions, and we've been in training grounds, we've been in dressing rooms, we've been up against some of the best teams in the region. Whereas a man from the street might not have seen those things, right?
Because that happens every day, especially in club football, English league. We only see Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea playing on the weekends or whenever they have a match, and we don't see the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So it's easy for us to criticize a player, not knowing what's leading up to the game itself.
Yeah, definitely. But again, that needs a clear strategy. You know, it needs a clear plan, and ultimately that's got to come from the people at the top of football in this country. And then, as I say, use everybody around it, all of our experiences, to try and come up with some way that we can make sure that, as you say, we have a consistency, and that consistent for me is qualifying for the World Cup every cycle, because we should be doing it. There's no question in my mind about that.
Well, there's no better chance of redemption than the next World Cup, which will be in the country.
Yeah, but we can't take that for granted.
We can't take it for granted.
We can't be complacent, and we can't think that, oh, just because Canada, USA and Mexico are already gone through, that we must qualify. That was probably my instant reaction when I heard about how things are going to be formulated. But you only again have to look at Curacao, for example. They're going out now recruiting in Holland, right? Where's our Dutch-based players that are not going to play for Holland, but they've got a link now, so we can go out there and we can go and recruit good
and with
players,
better structure, they will reach further.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And the teams that have qualified before us, you know, since we got last qualified, everyone's thinking the same thing. This is a great opportunity for us to get to a World Cup because the three are gone. So what we cannot do is just sit here and say, because we've got the players or because those three haven't gone, that shouldn't be our mentality. Our mentality should be what Canada did. We're going to go and win the CONCACAF qualifiers, not just get in because three other teams are there. So that's where our thinking needs to be. Hopefully, you know, the new coach, I don't know too much about him, but in terms of the players that have been involved, I still speak to Adrian Mariappa and some of the other guys and Damien Lowe, and they're happy enough in terms of what he's brought to the table so far. So again, from a structural and tactical point of view, I certainly feel that will be in a good place, but we have to get everything else together.
Right, Jobi, well, I hope that the JFF will be watching this and hear your insights. And
well, as I say, I'm always here, man. Like, always on the end of a phone call, email, and always happy to help in any way that I can.
Man. So I hope they'll take you up to task and reach out to you, because we hear your passion, and as someone who's so close to the Reggae Boyz team, I mean, it would be worthwhile and sensible to have you involved in some way possible. So I want to thank you for joining us for the interview.
Pleasure. Yeah, absolute pleasure.
Blessings.
Right.
3, 2, 1, rolling.
Welcome to REGGAEMYLITIS, your musical catalyst. I'm your host, Cool T. Now the trend continues. We had Andy Cole, now we have a former footballer. And next one, Joel Joshua.
Take two.
Cut.
You going with Joel, yeah?
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, I'm giving all of your names.
Ah,
Right?
cool.
Yeah, that's good, right?
Yeah, man, whatever. You want to shade me up like that?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Ready? Ready again?
It's Joel,
Joshua.
Frederick, Melvin. And I thought I had enough names. My name is Valentino Ventura Noel, but it stops there.
Yeah.
Alright. Thanks to True Sense for sponsoring this interview. Of course, True Sense Luxury Oil. Feel the luxury.
REGGAEMYLITIS. So the button, the people. Make sure you like this.
You have a reggae my life.